this meeting of the board to order. Do we have a quorum?
Yes, sir, we do. We have a quorum of the Board of Directors.
Great. So the board convenes today, May 2nd, at 12:08 at 1825 Market Center Boulevard. Notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act.
Oh, it's not started? Okay.
Start over. Okay.
Okay.
Call the meeting of the board to order. Do we have a quorum?
Yes, sir, we have a quorum of the Board of Governors of Uplift Education.
Great. The board convenes today, May 2nd, at 12:09 at 1825 Market Center Boulevard. Notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. The first order of business today is to hear the grievance appeal of Mr. Stephen Owens. Do you desire for the meeting to be open or closed?
I have no idea what that means.
Okay, so if you want it to be open, effectively, anybody can come and go. It's a proper open meeting. It'll be videoed.
If someone needs to go, they can. Yeah.
Yeah, if you want it to be
Absolutely.
closed, we can turn it off. And
Oh, no, that's fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
so open it is? Okay, terrific. The board on May 2nd, 2019, beginning, that's closed. Hang on. Okay, got it. So if everybody could go around and introduce themselves, I'll start. My name is Ryan Moss. I'm the chairman of the board.
Dawn Mann, board trustee.
Cameron Johnson, board member.
Richard Freipart, Vice Chairman of the Board.
Ardo Fuentes, board member.
Alex Burke, Chief Legal Officer, Uplift Education.
Tequila Butler, Dean at Peak Middle School.
Christina Nanini, Uplift Middle School Managing Director that supports Uplift Peak.
Naomi Harper, Manager of Compliance and Legal Affairs. Galen Curry, Director of Employee Relations.
Aaron Francis, Multimedia and Marketing Coordinator.
Terrific. And Mr. Stephen Owens. So this hearing will be conducted in accordance with the following procedures. Mr. Owens, you'll have 15 minutes to present your grievance appeal to the board. You may reserve part of that 15 minutes for rebuttal after the administration has a chance to speak. Would you like to reserve any of your time for rebuttal?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Absolutely.
How much?
Most of my time, 10 minutes, because I have no idea what's going to be said.
Okay.
And
So
that's
you-
part of the problem with this process.
Okay, so it'll be 5 minutes initially. And
Sure,
10
I'll take 5
following.
minutes then.
Okay, perfect.
Was there any way for me to know that before I got here? I was just wondering, because I read everything that I was sent. Just a question, you may not know the answer to that, but
Yeah, I mean, it's in our policy. It's the employee grievance policy.
that I would have 15 minutes, what was just said to me?
I mean, as far as what the process is. it lays
Okay,
out
so
the
no, it's not.
process.
Okay, all right, because I read about 10 times, and I was just wondering, that would be something, you know, for the future, your employees might want to know.
Perfect. Thank
Not
you.
just y'all get to know.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Okay, so after Mr. Owens has presented his grievance appeal, the Uplift administration will have 15 minutes to respond. The board may, but is not required to ask questions of Mr. Owens or the administration. Before we begin, does the board have copies of all the documents presented at the prior grievance levels? Okay, terrific. Mr. Owens, you have 15 minutes and you may proceed.
Okay, real quick, so I've been at Peak for 6 years. My wife works there, my 2 kids go there. We've made Peak our life. I've been in special education for 12 years. I've never gotten, as far as I could tell before my access was cut off, anything below a 3.4 in my yearly review. I've never once been written up. There's never been any documentation of me having issues that are displayed in this report written by Ms. Naniti. What happened was I took a student who was beating on a door of a classroom that had 4 self-contained scholars, that's special education scholars, 2 of whom were nonverbal and could be violent, and the other 2 who were just kind of confused. He was beating on the door. I asked him to stop just real quick, this isn't something that was unusual for Peak. because students do run the hall a lot. And he wouldn't give me his paycheck. A paycheck is a way of documenting their, as we would say in Uplift meetings, grows and glows, those sorts of things. And I knew if I put a withdrawal is what we would call it on there, because I know the student's father, that student, it would be taken care of at home. Because this year at Peak, students aren't disciplined for doing things like that, okay? That's why it continues to happen. So I took him to the office, and he will refuse to give me his paycheck. And the reason he refused to give me his paycheck is because he knew this was a game he could play. And I told him he didn't get to refuse me, which in the report by Ms. Nanidi, it's characterized as if that was a bad thing. That's literally how students get talked to every day at school, and they have been at Peak. That's not disrespectful, but to say, hey, to refuse to me is not an option, or not an option that comes without a penalty, that's good old-fashioned education. I took him to the office where I know the cameras are. I've worked at Peak for 6 years. I know where all the cameras are. And then he said, no, I'm not going to, I won't give it to you. And I said, well, then I'll get it for you. I've gone through students' backpacks before to get paychecks. This is not uncommon for many teachers to have to do. And if this was ever a problem, it was never once spoken or even said, in an email like they require us to do, so that it's documented. So I took him to the office, and then I went to go touch his backpack, and literally the second I touched his backpack, the director, who's now no longer there because she quit to go somewhere else, or whatever the story is, she said, Mr. Owens, stop. And so I stopped. There's video to document this is what happened. And now what has happened is the main grievance is, how many, do I have like a minute left?
You've got a minute and a half.
Okay, good. The report that Ms. Nanidi wrote on why the director made a good policy is even more grieving, because it's full of instances in which she had 30 minutes of my time that was recorded to ask me about these things, and she chose to ask me about other things that happened. And so there's all these sorts of undocumented things that people have said they've done with me where I had no chance to reply to any of these. None of this was ever written up. I've never once had a disciplinary action taken against me, officially or unofficially. There's just so much in here that is totally 100% unprofessional. And I wanted to quit at this point because I know at Uplift managing directors, basically, they have the power. I've been at Uplift before, fighting against Ms. Nanidi, but I didn't know I was going to have to fight against her until I read this report, which was wholly unprofessional. Never once was I given a chance to talk about some of these lies that were in here. I did not knowingly refuse to meet with my director. I'm deaf in one ear, and someone said they heard me say something. Maybe they heard me talking to myself. I'm a 42-year-old father of two, special education teacher. I get bit every day. I get kicked every day. And when they lock the bathrooms at our school and our students don't remember, who gets to clean their self when they go all over themselves? That's me. That's me. That's what I do. That's the job that I do for Peak, and I've done for Peak for the last 6 years. And now all of a sudden, because of the really rough year we've had with a new director who's never worked at Uplift before, and two deans who've never been deans before, and when that lack of leadership shows, I'm not allowed to get frustrated when my judgment gets overruled and a student goes on a field trip and I get bit in the middle of North Park Mall and have to restrain him. Do you know what it's like to be a 40-year-old white dude having to restrain a little Hispanic kid, just hoping somebody doesn't video that and put that up? We're in the middle of it. There's, hundreds of people out there. So yeah, I did get loud in the meeting. I was very upset that someone overruled the plan that I had in place without talking to me. And then we wanted to go on another field trip, which wasn't planned out, which wasn't structured. And so.
Okay, so that's
Yep, that's
5
it.
minutes. If you'd
Thank you.
rather push it out,
Nope, I wouldn't.
You sure?
Nope,
Okay,
yep, I'm
terrific.
definitely sure.
thank you. Administration, you guys have 15 minutes.
Sure. I was looking through your file, through the notebook here to see if you had the original termination notice. I didn't see it, so let me know if that's in here. But originally, Mr. Owens was terminated by the director at the time, Jamila Thomas, under ethical conduct towards students, section 5, which says the educator shall not intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly engage in physical mistreatment of a student. In his level 1 hearing with me, I heard his case had several follow-up questions based on what I had read in the termination file and the supplemental documentation, as well as Mr. Owens submitted several character witness statements, and so I reviewed all of those as well. You have on page 8 in your packet my summary of that hearing. So you'll see at the top of page 9, it starts the discussion where I tried to address each of the claims that Mr. Owens made and the evidence that I found to substantiate it or not. Then I went through the campus file and outlined all of the claims that they made and the evidence that I found that either substantiated it or not. Mr. Owens just brought up a concern.
The termination paperwork is in here.
Okay, it looks like on page 15, you see the original termination notice from Ms. Thomas. I'm okay using part of my time to have you read it,
You bet.
if you would just let me know when you finish that. And then, so then back on, starting on page 8 is my report, and I want to give you time to read that, but I just want to point out, Mr. Owens just stated in his statement here that he was concerned that in the report, things were brought up that were not directly related to this termination. The reason for that is during his hearing with me, he mentioned that he believed that he had never received any feedback regarding this sort of behavior before, and so I wanted to look into if that claim is substantiated or not. And so I did look into the rest of the campus files and statements made by his current administrators in order to find out were there other similar situations and had he received any sort of feedback on that sort of behavior before. So I am fine using the rest of my time for you all to read. It starts on page 8, goes to page 13 in here, so that you have what happened in the original hearing.
All the board members have read it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Ms. Newman, is there anything else?
Would you like me to answer any questions? After you read it, was there anything more that you would like to know?
I didn't have any.
What I wrote is my full understanding of the case.
Questions from the group? Okay. Mr. Owen?
Yes.
The remaining 10 minutes.
Okay, good. So my first point is, just to address what Ms. Nannetti said, was if you have read what she said, there was no documentation of any of these things. This was all, hey, let me go ask some admin, do you have anything to say about him? Right, there was, these were not documented instances. I know as a teacher, if I go into a meeting with a parent and I say, hey, your kid hasn't turned in, or he skipped class 4 times, or he was disruptive 4 classes, they're going to want to know, where's that documentation? What happened? Did you email me? Right? We're not allowed to do that with parents. I don't feel as if that's the proper way to treat an employee. I was in no way able to give even the context for why I had a disagreement, and most of these were with one dean who did not quite understand how special education worked in an Uplift setting, which is understanding because we combined a lot of things and it can be confusing, and so she had a tough time. Also, to just go back to my original grievance and why I was fired, that Ms. Ninity point out, can we look at the video? There's a video of this, and I don't know, has everyone seen the video?
You've not seen it.
Okay, because there's in no way, the video, and in her writing it says the video is inconclusive. And that's why all this other information is brought up out of left field to substantiate a narrative, when in reality the reason I was fired is on video and I didn't grab a student. Also, by the way, I may be talking loud. I'm 100% deaf in my left ear, okay? So if I was yelling, sometimes, yes, I speak very loudly, and I don't realize it because I'm deaf. But there's a video of this, and I really feel like it completely 100% shows that I'm not wrong, that this is not what happened. I took a student, I went to touch the student, there was no grabbing, you could see all this, and as soon as she said something, I left.
Does Employee Relations have a copy of the video?
I have a copy of the video.
Do you have a copy of it you can
Yeah,
pull up?
sure. And then in the report too, you have what I was able to conclude and not conclude from my view of it.
And so while she's pulling this up, my point is this. Every year, every week, every month at Uplift, I'm told we rise together, right? And so I've been in education 12 years. I've never once been written up. I've been commended multiple times. I have really good reviews every year. Those are all on file for anyone to read. I don't have access to them. And when we see this video, just think, man, is this rising together the way we're treating this 40, about to be 42 this month, 42-year-old teacher who now doesn't have insurance? His kids every day have to be, hey, I heard your dad got fired, right? A wife who then had to get checked into the hospital because for a month, we also lost a month of my wife's paycheck because her blood pressure spiked 200 over 180. Last week was her lowest blood pressure. She's still struggling with this. Is this really necessary? Is this how we want to treat our employees? If it is, then I lose. But I really don't think there's that many people in the world who want to treat their employees like this.
So let me ask, outside of the presentation or the video, which we'll get a copy of and we'll make sure the board sees,
Yes.
any additional statements for the board?
That's my piece.
Okay.
Okay.
So, Board Chair, I would suggest ending the presentation at this point. If there's no other comments, we'll get a
Perfect.
copy of the video for the board to see.
We'll review it.
And we'll
go to
review
closed
it.
session.
Yeah.
And what does that mean exactly?
So we're gonna stay in open, because you requested to be in open session, once we have the video?
Yep, we have
Okay, all right. If we could get the laptop over here to let the board view the video.
It has no sound.
Yeah, I don't think it ever had any sound.
Yeah, no, they don't.
None of the
Yeah.
cameras at our schools have audio recording.
Let's do.
Good.
All right. Well, should it
You'll
begin?
see. You'll see.
Okay. Yeah.
Mine's good.
Mhm. We can keep doing it. You just let me know.
They were talking about are on the other side of the class, the people they were talking about.
I don't know. You'll have to ask
The people
administration.
that said there were several parents and I guess staff around, were they on this side of the glass or inside of the
Yeah,
office?
so the way that the office is set up is, there's that room that you're seeing. There's a conference room that's adjacent to it. There's also a door that opens to where all of the administrator offices are, that's right there too. That's also where the school copy machine is, so it's common to have teachers there at the copy machine. The hallway to the cafeteria and everything is just right outside the door that you see Mr. Owens walk out of. And then, so if you're looking, the camera view is looking this way, what's right behind it is the glass to where parents are waiting in the atrium.
Yeah, there were quite a few people there. I mean, that's why I took him to the office.
Okay. See if they have any questions. Okay, so I guess we can take a break to go into closed session, correct?
Yeah. So why don't if you'll.
That's in closed session.
Can I schedule with executive last return? Right here.
Okay, got it. Okay, so at this point, the board will go into executive session under section 551.071 of the government code. If we could, I guess, excuse everybody, excluding council, that would be great. And then, Mr. Owens, well, if you could just stay close by.
Yeah, I'm good. I'll be right on.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect.
And Mr. Owens, what that means is, under the Open Meetings Act, the board is permitted to go into closed session.
Yeah, and you're going to
So
talk
it's-
about what's your decision?
Well, about, well,
no,
not
to
the
be clear,
decision.
No decision will be made in
Yeah.
closed session.
Oh,
We'll bring it
right.
back in. And-
This is only to consult with legal counsel.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
And then we'll
Right
come
on.
back in open session,
Okay.
and if the board
Yeah, I don't
would like
have
to
one
take a
with
decision. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Owens. And we're good? Cool. All right.
Okay, the executive session under section 551.071 is adjourned at 12:57, and no action was taken in executive session. The board reconvenes in open session. I hereby call the open meeting reopened at 12:57. No decision was made by the board during closed or executive session. The board will now consider and take action on Mr. Owens' grievance appeal and/or request for relief. I move to uphold the grievance and overturn the termination. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, guys. Motion carries. Thanks, everybody, for being here.
Wait, explain what just happened again? What just happened?
So
You,
we upheld your
the grievance, okay, I was just making
We
sure. I heard.
upheld
I'm
your
deaf in one ear, I
grievance.
was just
Yeah,
making
no,
sure.
We upheld your grievance.
Thank
It
you.
overturns the termination. There's some complexity around that we're going to have to sort out with HR. That's
Sure,
not
I
the business
totally-
For here. But yeah.
All right, thank you.
So where's Galen? We'll have Galen. We'll get Galen connected with you.
Right, I understand. I'll probably, honestly, I'll need to transfer or something, so.
Okay, well,
I
that's,
can't work.
those are discussions.
Right, that's what I'm
for
saying.
another
I
time.
get all that, and I got time, so yeah.
Okay.
I'm not working.
Okay, so
Okay.
it's 12:59, May 2nd, and we hereby adjourn. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Congratulations, Mr. Owens.